we'll get started even though we're missing some people. Thank you all for joining us today for our Homeless Services Task Force meeting in July. Let's see, I guess we'll do introductions real quick. I'll just call out your name, just going by the way you are on my Zoom screen here. Just let us know who you are and who you represent. And Grace, let's start with you.
I'm Grace Farwell with the South Bay Cities Council of Governments.
Great, I'm Christian Horvath, council member, Redondo Beach, and chair of this body. Lori?
Lori Jacobs, South Bay Cities Council of Governments.
All right, Courtney?
Good afternoon, everybody. Courtney Reed here from PATH.
Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Wilcox with the South Bay Coalition to End Homelessness.
Great. Keith? Just got to unmute, Keith.
Sorry about that. Keith Bennett, City of Carson Community Development Department.
Thank you. Mary?
Mary Agnes Erlandson, Director of St. Margaret's Center.
Thank you. George?
George Chen, Torrance City Councilman.
And George from Manhattan Beach.
George Gabriel from City of Manhattan Beach.
Okay, George Chen, we're going to come up with a good nickname for you. How about that? Anna?
Hi, Anna Papadakis with the Redondo Beach City Attorney's Office. I'm a deputy prosecutor.
Great. Jackie?
Jackie Backrack, Executive Director, South Bay Cities Council of Governments.
Great. Joy?
Joy Abakane with the City Attorney's Office in Redondo Beach.
David? You're muted.
We go. Hi, I'm Dave Ellis with Safe Huts.
Welcome. Thank you. Jesse?
Hi, good afternoon. Jesse Ramirez, Homeless Services Coordinator for the City of Hawthorne.
Oh, fantastic. Kathleen? Just unmute yourself, please.
That again. Kathleen Austria, Supervisor Holly Mitchell's office.
Great. Thank you. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie Bright, City of Rancho Palos Verdes.
Okay. Landon?
Landon Phillips with the Hermosa Beach Police Department.
Thank you. Cody?
Cody Bridges, Office of Assembly Member Almer.
Brianna?
Brianna Jajaram, Regional Coordinator for the Adult Coordinated Entry System at Harbor Interface, SPY.
Thanks. Sherry?
Sherry Weaver, Harbor Interface Services, Director of Programs.
Great. Viet?
Good afternoon, everyone. Viet Wong with the City of Torrance.
Anna?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm the new program manager for Outreach at Spot A for PATH.
Great. Roberto?
Good afternoon, everyone. Roberto Chavez, HUD Programs Manager for the City of Inglewood. Thank you.
Lori?
Hi, this is Lori Ramey. I'm the Director of Outreach and Street-Based Medicine for MHALA's Homeless Outreach Program.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis?
Paulette Francis, Councilmember City Gardena. Thank you.
Thanks. Aram?
Good afternoon, Aram Chaparian, City of Torrance.
Great. Jennifer?
Good afternoon, Jennifer Lamarque, South Bay Field Deputy with Supervisor Jamison.
Great. John?
Hi, everybody. John LaRock, City of Torrance.
Nice bridge, John. Ashley? Ashley's still connecting the audio, so I'll go to CAC.
I think she's still connecting as well.
Okay. Jackie?
Jackie Arco, City of Gardena, social worker.
Great. Raymond?
Good afternoon, Raymond Jackson, Council Member Hermosa Beach.
Great. And I see, okay, CAC, are you there? All right, and Ashley?
Hello, Ashley O with the Homeless Initiative.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to be here. We've got a packed agenda, so we will get right into it. But before we do, I just want to give a big round of applause and congratulations to the City of Torrance for taking the next big step with their homeless outreach program. So thank you to Aram, Viet, and John. It's awesome to have another partner come on board. So hoping to see more of our cities do the same. We have meeting notes from our last meeting on May 5th. It's just a receive and file. So unless anybody has a comment or statement to make, see something wrong in them, just raise your hand now, let me know. Otherwise, we will move on. All right, seeing none, then why don't we go first today? Ashley O from the Homeless Initiative is going to be speaking to us about updates for the 22-23 funding and reevaluation of strategies. So Ashley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, council member. So this is just a really brief update, and I'm sure you guys have been following the board agendas. Originally, the Board of Supervisors was to review and deliberate on the fiscal year 21-22 Measure H budget yesterday. However, it got postponed to July 13th. So there will be a board discussion and deliberation on that next Tuesday. And it also includes a CEO's recommended $15 million for the next round of funding to support the city's implementation efforts. And that's $15 million for 18 months, starting January of 2022 to 18 months after that. And as Grace has shared with you at our previous meeting, that the COG has been engaging the cities to solicit individual or collaborative projects. Keep in mind that you don't just only have to apply for just your own city, but we also certainly encourage collaborative and partnerships so that we could really achieve some regional scale of outcomes and whatnot. So that's happening. And secondly, we've shared about the board motion, which instructed the CEO to reevaluate the homeless initiative strategies. And it will be due in October. We have a 6-month turnaround. So there's going to be multiple phases, and actually I have a question after this. The first phase is to be able to retain a partnering consultant to be able to comprehensively review the homeless initiative strategies currently in place, as well as its achievements. We also want to see if the dynamics or the state of the homelessness has changed since when HI strategies were adopted by the board 4 years ago. So we also would like to incorporate that. And then secondly, if there's any new strategies that needs to be incorporated, and this could also mean that phasing out some outdated strategies as well. And then of course, we are looking at possibly partnering with other consultants as well to be able to host public convenings, because we will be having several meetings with the key stakeholders so that they could provide input and provide comments to the consultants' comprehensive analysis. There is a very specific portion about the cities, because as a friendly amendment to the board motion, Supervisor Solis did include a directive on engaging the cities in terms of how they could play a role in the HI's homeless initiative strategies. And then secondly, how the cities could leverage county resources to be able to expand the interim housing and permanent housing capacity within their jurisdictions. So that's the process that we're trying to finalize, and we're probably looking at early September to be able to engage the key stakeholders. I'd like to pause and see if you guys have any questions on where we're at. And then secondly, I do want to ask the group, if it's okay with you, Christian, in terms of what would be the most effective way to engage the cities for the overall process, as well as the as well as a smaller process that got added into the board motion. So first one, if anyone has any questions on the process.
If you have a question for Ashley, just click raise your hand. It's under reactions. And if for some reason you can't find that, just wave your hands wildly and I'll call on. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions, Ashley, on that. To the second part of reach out to each of the cities. If you could coordinate with Jackie and have any materials, either questionnaires or information on what specific information you would like the cities to get back to you, and then give us a timeline on when you would like to have that back, I think that would be helpful.
Oh, Christian, I'm sorry. Let me clarify.
Sure.
So we're looking at more like a virtual convening, because certainly it'd be great to have in person, but then I don't think that's going to happen with all the Delta variants going on, right? So we're looking at virtual convening with the key stakeholders, so that we wanted to see, and certainly surveys could be a part of it, but we wanted to see, is there an efficient way to engage our cities, since it's not a lot of time to engage many stakeholders, including the cities, because I think we're looking at first couple weeks of September.
Okay. Are you wanting to do that individually, one-on-one with cities, or are you thinking about doing it as one type of a special meeting?
Correct. So there are a couple ideas that's floating to piggyback on the existing COG meetings, right? Because there is uniqueness in each regions, or to do something countywide all at once together involving all cities.
Okay. But we can talk with Jackie about this offline. I would think just having a special meeting to address your issues where we invite each of the cities to participate would be better than tacking it on to one of our COG board meetings, just because those agendas tend to get pretty full. And
Sure.
I think each of I'm speaking out of turn here, but I would think that each of our cities would want to send not only electeds, but maybe the representatives on staff that are, most intimately engaged to participate in that.
I see. So I think what I'm hearing is that initially probably more at the COG level, but not piggybacking on any existing meetings, and a little bit of reservation about having countywide sessions, but having a little more COG centric or COG level of discussion. Did I understand that correctly?
That would be my preference, but I'm definitely open to feedback from anybody that is on the call. Anyone? Bueller. Great. Okay, so why don't we go with that, and then Ashley, we can always, get on a call with Jackie as well and try to figure that out. And,
No
and clearly, we'll want to do it sooner than later because you're looking at a September deadline, is what you're saying.
Right. So this input's really helpful. So I could definitely take it back to our team, since we're hustling to, really conduct a thoughtful process. So I'll take this back to the team. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Great. And Ashley, is that it for your entire presentation?
Yes, that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. All right, and good to see you. It's been a while.
Actually,
all right.
Christian,
Yes, go ahead.
if you don't mind me butting in, because I thought I would take the opportunity now, as we were talking about the Measure H funding for the next cycle of January 2022 through June of 2023, because I want to make sure, and as Ashley mentioned, we're really focused on trying to find, we encourage as many cities as possible to apply for this funding. And I hope that everyone has received a copy, all of our city partners have received a copy of the call for projects that was sent out, I think, a couple of times. And also, we really want our cities to potentially focus on collaborative, multi-jurisdictional proposals and partnerships. So just want to kind of reiterate that. And I guess I also want to show of hands at this point of how many of our cities are thinking about applying for some funding, because I've heard personally from a few of them, but I really am curious as to how many of our cities are anticipating submitting an application. All right, so I'm guessing that Viet's hand is up because he's saying yes, Torrance is submitting. Okay, so I know Torrance, Redondo Beach,
Manhattan,
Carson. Okay. And George?
Is Joy Carson?
No, CAC was Carson.
Okay, Joy had her hand up.
Joyce Redondo.
Oh, okay.
And I know Hawthorne had reached out to me, but we don't have any Hawthorne folks on the call right now. And I know Hawthorne said that they're going to be applying.
And it looks like Inglewood.
Good. Okay.
Grace, are you hoping for 100% participation?
Well, that would obviously be wonderful, but
we're always hoping for 100% participation.
And then also, you know, we've got a couple of cities that I think this would be an ideal time that they have not put together their homelessness plan. So I think this would be great because there's money available to develop a homelessness plan, as well as looking at, you know, other types of housing situations. And in fact, that's part of the reason, kind of the theme for today's meeting is we've invited representatives from Safe Huts, which is a temporary housing, really kind of a competitor to the pallet shelter. And then I've also invited someone to talk about the Back Home initiative. And I had reached out to the city of Culver City because they've been working on a feasibility study looking at a motel conversion. Unfortunately, they were not able to participate today, but if any of our cities are interested in motel conversion, I'm more than happy to connect you with my contact over at the city of Culver City. That always sounds weird, city of Culver City. But yeah, so please, you know, let me know. You can put it in the chat box if your city is interested in you know, potentially motel conversion, or you can always email me. And I guess at this point too, I might as well let the cat out of the bag that I am leaving the COG, and my last day is actually next Thursday, the 15th. And so on the original call for projects, we had my email down, but now it's going to be David Lejeune, who usually is on this call, but he's doing something else today. And so I'll make sure that I resend the call for projects that has the corrected, updated email contact on it. So I think that is my update. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman. Grace, would you be able to talk about how the COG will be scoring, or how they'll prioritize the proposals that are submitted?
Well, we have, I've developed a rubric that we're going to be utilizing, and it's really looking at, you know, whether it's in priority area 1 or priority area 2. We're also, you know, extra points will be given to those cities that put in a multi-jurisdictional, you know, collaborative application. And, you know, Viet, you should have told me you were going to ask me this question. I could have pulled up my rubric ahead of time. So yeah, so we have put together a rubric, and it's looking at kind of even the innovation of the project. Even though these aren't titled innovation funds, I still think it's really important for our cities to be as innovative as possible. Is it replicable? Gosh, I'm really having to reach into the recesses of my brain for this one.
Grace, are you able to email out the rubric by chance?
Yes.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I will do that next week, because actually I'm going on vacation tomorrow and I'll be back Monday. My daughter's getting married on Saturday. So, you know, lots of things happening in my life. So anybody else have any questions?
Looks like Ashley.
Is trying to stump Grace?
Go ahead, Ashley.
Thank you. So when I asked the question, I know that you guys are sort of not laughing at me, but sort of chuckling, right? So my hope is that we have as many cities who do participate. I know that for our first round of funding for the implementation, only a small number of cities participated. And it was also limited to the cities that developed homelessness plans, right? Whereas this time around, it's actually open to all cities within the COG. So I really do encourage all cities to take advantage of the technical assistance that's being offered by the COG and this funding opportunity to really take a collective effort to address homelessness. Just wanted to sort of put that plug in. And I'm sure we'll have other opportunity towards end of the meeting to do some warm send off to Grace. You just like sort of dropped the bomb right there. So thank you, Christian.
Thank you. All right, any other questions for Grace or Ashley before we move on to our next speaker? All right, seeing none, then we are going to hear from Duffy and Dave, although I think only Dave is here. And they're going to give us an overview of Safe Huts, which, as Grace alluded to, is another option aside from the pallet shelters, which we've discussed here before. So Dave, you want to go ahead?
Thank you for the opportunity. And I apologize, Duffy is traveling today. He's somewhere in the Pacific Northwest where they don't have Wi-Fi. So anyway, Grace, good luck. We've never met, but whatever you're going to do, best wishes. So brief overview. I know you've got a packed agenda, so I don't want to belabor the points. Yes, we are an option to pallet. We produce a 70 square foot Title 24 compliant small home. Difference is we manufacture out of fiberglass. Duffy Duffield, my partner, is the largest manufacturer of electric boats in the world. Some of you may have been on one of his little Duffy boats in California, from Channel Islands all the way down to San Diego, or he just sold one in Afghanistan. So I don't know if there's a lake in Afghanistan, but there's a Duffy boat there. The reason fiberglass is important is it's long lasting, it's durable, it's insulatable, and it's essentially fireproof. Our pricing is consistent with pallets. We are in discussions in the Inland Empire with various municipalities. We have an all-in price, manufacturing, delivery, and assembly. When the jurisdiction purchases, they own it. If you decide to shut your village down, you could repurpose it as a storage facility or whatever you choose. It will warranty it for 50 years, similar to his boats. The boats sit in salt water, and he has boats that have been functioning for the past half a century. So it's highly durable. The people experiencing homeless population cannot destroy this. They can take a sledgehammer to it and it will still stand. It's weatherproof, waterproof, and it's easily sanitized because of the fiberglass material we use. We're very sensitive to COVID and pandemic, so simply you can take whatever cleaning solvents you choose, hose it out, dry it, it's ready for the next resident within a half an hour. Assembly is about 2 hours. As I say, we do it. Turn the keys over to you and your navigation provider or your social services team, and it's ready to go. We solar it so that it's we're kind of debating whether or not, well, we're not debating. We solar it. We provide a 12 volt USB port to charge phone, computer. We do not believe that it's in anybody's interest to provide 120 volt power in the unit, except for a heating and air conditioning unit, which we would hardwire in. So that we just don't, as was the case out in the Banning fire that wiped out a homeless village in just minutes. If given the opportunity to plug something in like a hot plate or a curling iron, bad things can happen. So we will not, for liability reasons, hardwire 120 volt outlets in the units. We will hardwire the air conditioning and the heating unit. Generally, that's the overview. You've seen the pallet shelters, which are wonderful. We are a competitor, and as I say, we're comparably priced with a little longer warranty than maybe pallet provides, simply because fiberglass does not decompose.
Great. Are there any questions for Dave? Kathleen, go ahead.
Hi, what about plumbing? Water and toilet.
Yes, most municipalities are providing that infrastructure. We have partnered with a company called Sanitrax out of Amsterdam. Sanitrax is the largest provider of sanitation equipment, water sinks, sewers, toilets, showers in the world. They provide to the United States military. One of my clients is Live Nation. We provide all of the sanitation for large events like a concert at the Rose Bowl or the Coliseum. These are not construction porta potties. These are nicer facilities that are comfortable.
Thank you.
Great. And just a quick announcement. I have to hop off for a meeting, so Grace will take over while I'm gone, and then I'll be back. But let's go to Viet.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Dave, for the presentation. What is the nearest community where we could see these units in action?
By the way, we manufacture in Adelanto. We're a California company. I don't know if Adelanto's on the way to Mammoth. It's a small town near Victorville. We will bring one to your front door. How's that?
Are any currently being used, Dave?
No, sir. We have not built a village yet.
Thank you, Dave.
Great. And Dave, I'm assuming you have a website that people can go to for more information if they want to see examples and stuff.
Yes, Christian. It's safehuts.com.
Great. Okay, Lori, go ahead.
Well, Viet asked two of the questions I was already going to ask, but I'm wondering what lead time is. So if we could get a village interested and they need 20 or 25 of them, how soon could they be built? And also, thank you for the presentation.
Oh, good question. Thank you. We'll guarantee delivery 30 days from site prep being completed.
Okay. Any other questions?
The longer the lead time, the better, Lori. Thank you.
Good to know.
We are co-manufacturing boats as we speak. And by the way, I mean, there's nothing good that comes out of COVID except the boat business.
Great. Well, Dave, thank you very much for coming today and presenting your information. We appreciate it. Seeing no further questions, let's move on to Jennifer Lamarque from Supervisor Hahn's office. She's going to be updating us on the Board of Supervisors' motion to expand LA County mental health services through their crisis response teams, and how does that affect the South Bay. So Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Christian, and good afternoon, everyone. I have some colleagues joining me. I don't know if they're on just yet because we're a little ahead of schedule, but I did text them. But I'll kick it off by saying that earlier this month, Supervisor Hahn, along with Supervisor Barger, passed a motion at the board, and it's part of the ongoing efforts for the county to expand its alternative crisis response. It's to provide a non-law enforcement response when people are experiencing mental health crises, to get away from relying on 911. And so we already have these psychiatric mobile response teams, PMRT teams, and then a separate, more limited pilot program with the city of LA that is the therapeutic vans that you may have heard of. So these two programs are currently operating, but they're limited in scope because there's currently 25 vans that are operating from 8 to 5, and then there are 12 vans that operate from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. And so we know that crises don't happen during normal business hours, and that there's that 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. gap where there's no coverage. And so, and also the response time can be up to 2 hours. So Supervisor Hahn recognized the need for these to be 24/7 and available to all of our communities. And this is especially important because next summer, the first nationwide mental health crisis hotline, 988, will be operational. So we need to really build capacity in this alternative crisis response system to align with that. So the motion that the supervisor did, it asked the county to develop a plan and report back in 60 days to expand this program to 24/7, like I said, and then also how to use American Rescue Plan funds to help with the expansion. So that's the overview. I invited my colleague Kyla Coates, she's our Justice and Mental Health Deputy, as well as John Franklin Sierra from DMH to join us. And are they on the line yet for any questions?
John is here, but I don't see Kyla on yet, so.
Okay, well, I'd like to introduce John to say a few words as well. He is with the Department of Mental Health. He's a senior staff analyst, and he's been an incredible resource on this issue and has a lot of expertise. So John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jennifer. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch for the introduction. So yeah, as Jennifer mentioned, I'm a senior staff analyst at the LA County Department of Mental Health. I'll clarify up front, I'm not a clinician. I'm actually an engineer by background, a systems engineer, have been put to work on a lot of special projects, but lately this has been really my full-time project, managing what we're calling this alternative crisis response project, how we can better improve the capacity of programs for serving individuals experiencing behavioral health crises, whether related to suicide, mental health, substance use related crises, especially those programs that could serve as a reliable alternative to law enforcement in response to those crises, right? And as Jennifer mentioned, we have some existing programs like our psychiatric mobile response teams program that the Department of Mental Health operates. Just to clarify, it's actually mostly the teams Jennifer is mentioning and the times they're staffed. Most of them actually do not have the ability to transport clients with vans currently. But that therapeutic vans pilot that she mentioned is a pilot we're doing to introduce patient transport as part of the services that those teams can provide. The teams that can't do patient transport rely on private ambulance companies to do transport currently, which is not ideal. It really kind of adds a lot of delay to getting clients to the care that they need. So we're really trying to explore how we can equip all of our mobile response teams with the ability to provide client transport when needed. And so there's a lot of layers to the project. I mean, as Jennifer mentioned, starting mid next year, in July next year, at least that's according to federal legislation, there's, it's always possible that the telecom companies could get the jump on us and kick things off even earlier than that, which is a scary thought. But this number 988 is set to go live. It's going to work by just pointing to the existing National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which for callers from LA County area codes is answered by an organization called D.D. Hirsch Mental Health Services in LA County. But it's going to be more than just a rebrand of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The intent is for it to be an alternative to 911 for mental health emergencies, right? To build it out as such. And so there's a lot of work to do to make that a reality, coordinating with 911 call centers so that they can reliably divert behavioral health crisis calls over to the 988 system, coordinating between our existing mobile response resources like PMRT and the D.D. Hirsch 988 call center so that, they can triage an individual, they can try to provide crisis counseling over the phone, ideally. A lot of mental health emergencies can be resolved over the phone, which is, a little different from physical health emergencies. But for those callers who do need an in-person response, we want to make sure that D.D. Hirsch can connect with programs to do that. And we have our PMRT program, and as Jennifer mentioned, the supervisor, put out authored a motion working so we can get that program to be truly 24 hours, as well as to expand it in accordance with the increased federal money that we're expecting coming down next year. But we're also, we've been talking to a number of municipal partners who are actually interested in developing essentially their own version of PMRT, which we think is a really great thing. And we're really excited to work with those different municipalities that, based on their feedback to us, really see providing better response to mental health emergencies is kind of in concert with their other emergency responsibilities that they have currently, right, for responding to public safety or other kinds of health emergencies. And, really leaning into this idea that mental health emergencies are health emergencies, right, and that they need a 24-hour robust response that's commensurate with what we've come to expect to other kinds of emergencies. And so I think what our department has really been trying to do then is come up with a way of outreaching to cities who are interested in pursuing this, try and see if we can establish some guidance and some parameters around what we think makes the most sense for design of these programs based on our experience and also based on national guidelines. Once I'm done talking, I can post in the chat, but for those who don't know, the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration put out some guidelines last year around the, developing better crisis response systems, and they talk about mobile crisis response specifically. And so I think one of the things we would definitely advocate for is any cities interested in setting up programs like this, take a look at those guidelines and think about how they would make their program align with it. But in addition, a lot of people may not know this, but one of the hats that our department wears is we are actually a health plan. We serve as kind of what's called the specialty mental health plan for LA County, very similar to like LA Care or Health Net in that we serve safety net individuals, but specifically safety net individuals with serious mental health needs, including crisis mental health needs. And so that includes our ability to draw down federal matching funds for services provided to Medicaid beneficiaries. And, from everything we know, we believe that any city that's interested in developing, say, a PMRT-like mobile crisis program, they should be able to work with us as the county mental health plan to draw down federal matching funds for those services, which, because of the increase in these federal funds that we're expecting early next year, as mentioned in the motion, is really significant. And so that's another thing that we're trying to work out, is how we can work with cities to support them in providing federal matching funds for crisis services if they're interested in putting together their own programs. So that's a really very brief nutshell version of where we're at. There's a number of public reports we've put out as well so far about the project that I can link afterward as well. But other than that, happy to answer any questions and from folks who about the motion or about the broader project.
Great. And Jennifer, I see Kyla has signed on, so I don't know if you want to have her speak at all.
Sure. Thank you so much, John. And I think let's just hold the questions for now, and I'll turn it over to Kyla Coates, our Justice and Mental Health Deputy, to give a little more background as well.
Thanks, Jennifer. I don't think I need to add much. John is definitely the expert in this area, but we are really excited about building out our alternative crisis response network across LA County. And one of the things that we know is that any type of crisis response is most effective if it is local and if it's community driven. So we're really interested in pursuing the ability to partner with cities who want to establish their own ACR network. And by partnering with the Department of Mental Health, we'll then be able to access the enhanced federal Medicaid funds that John was just talking about. So definitely looking forward to future conversations and building up both local and countywide ACR networks.
Great, thanks, Kyla. So Jennifer, do you guys want to take questions at this point, or?
Sure.
Okay, great. So are there any questions for Jennifer, Kyla, and or John related to the program? Okay, it's a quiet audience today. So Jennifer, if they do want to reach out on the side, do you want to put your information or Kyla's information in the chat, and then
Absolutely. Yes, and the motion called for the report back in 60 days. So as soon as we get that, I'll update this task force as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate that. And there's a high need. So with that said, we'll move on to our next speaker today. Is Richard here?
He is not here yet because he has a commitment until 4 o'clock. So he'll be joining us at 4. So
All right. So why don't we move on? We'll go to Courtney.
Good afternoon, y'all.
Okay, I'm getting ready to share my screen. I'm challenged today because I don't have my 2 monitors. So hold on.
Well, while Grace is doing that, I did want to introduce our new program manager, Anna Abril. She was recently promoted. She's been with PATH for the past year. Yeah, it has been a year. She was our problem solving specialist and she recently was promoted to program manager. So we're excited to have her on board. So she won't say too much today, but in September, she'll definitely present. All right, and Haley is here too. You can go to the next slide, Grace. So just to give an update on where we are since May. So this is the team. We have, we're still short staffed, which is one of the challenges we've had throughout COVID, of course. But we do have the team here, Valerie, Andrew, Stephanie, and Jillian, our latest, newest addition. But they're still out there providing the intensive street case management. Of course, we're doing the CES screenings, or VI SPDATs when needed, and still actively doing housing location services and ongoing supportive services for folks that we have done direct placements with. Sorry, this mask is weird, but next slide. I can't read. So this is Andrew and Valerie. This is their schedule. You can find them in these cities on these days. Of course, we are flexible. We do get phone calls from police departments. Sometimes we're able to go and take care of that. Sometimes we have to put it on hold, but continue to do the LA hops because we do have LA hop follow-up days in our schedule. Next slide, please. This is Jillian and Stephanie. These are the days that they're in these cities as well. And again, we do have follow-up LA hop days, but you can find them in these cities on these days, and we are flexible with the schedule. Of course, we're flexible. So there's wiggle room, unless we have some set appointments with people that need it, we'll try to be as flexible as possible. Next slide, please. Continue to submit LA hops, la-hop.org. We're still getting those LA hop requests. Next slide. And so this past year, we were a little short staffed, so we didn't get as much as before. So since July of last year, we've received 48 LA hops. And then for the months of May and June, we got 13. And there have been times throughout the year that we had to ask the Ari from Harbor Interfaith, the outreach coordinator, to hold off on LA hops due to staffing issues and capacity and things like that. But since we have more folks on the team, we are able to accept them right now. So next slide, please. All right, so community connection. So we're still doing joint outreach out at Lamita McCoy. The tiny home villages opened up, and we've spent a lot of the past 2 to 3 weeks, probably the last month, really focusing on that area and getting people into those tiny home villages over in at Harbor College. And we also participated in the Carson Resource Fair that they had back in May, still in Redondo Beach at the meal programs, and also participating in homeless court. And again, we're working with Gardena PD, have us on speed dial. And we're also still making trips to the shelters, Doors of Hope and Beacon Light in Wilmington. So our numbers, these are our numbers. So right now, the team is case managing 72 people. Jillian is just started like a month ago, and so she's still building up her caseload. We've referred 13 people to Tiny Home Village and 10 people to rapid rehousing. And it's been hard. We set these numbers last year, thinking COVID was probably coming to an end, but it's come well into this year. And so it's been a challenge not being able to go directly to like Department of Mental Health to connect people, the GR office, Social Security office to connect people. So that's been a little bit challenging. And then also with the housing as well, there is recovery available, but you have to be matched to that. And so we have a bunch of referrals in for people to be matched to recovery. We're just waiting for that to hit those permanent housing numbers. Next slide. But we do have some success. So this is Miss Snow. She was homeless out in Gardena and was connected to services to us and another agency. We worked together. She got referred to recovery and we assisted her in some housing applications. And she eventually moved into her apartment in June. And she also got a part-time job to help her sustain the housing. So we're super excited that she was able to get connected to recovery and move in. And she has income, which is excellent. And then another success, that's not necessarily a permanent housing success, but he's on the way. We're gonna be positive and believe that he's on the way. This is someone that got into the Tiny Home Village. He was homeless out in Harbor City for the past 2 years. He was formerly a welder. So now at the Tiny Home Village, he plans to enroll in school and renew his welding certification to get employment. We're still actively working with him on a few things, but it took a lot of conversation and motivational interviewing to get him into this space. So we're super excited and we're still working with him. Okay, so that's it. We normally have a slide for ask, and I didn't get to that, but what we do want to ask the cities is to continue to look into solutions for affordable permanent housing as well as interim housing. It feels good as an outreach team now to be able to have beds for people that we can send them to or have that as an option. And then it also, of course, feels good to have people, get to apartments that they can afford. So that's, we just want to continue to ask for that. And that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, so are there any questions? I'm not seeing any hands up.
Yeah, Kathleen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen.
Sorry, I can't find my reactions. I got 2 screens here.
Okay.
Could you please email that? I know Haley's on. Haley, you have my email, the print, and I'm wondering why, the numbers are different between the 2nd and the 4th district.
Oh, there's less cities in the 2nd district, so there's less people to serve.
Okay.
Yeah, and also too, all of the presentations from today will be posted, and the reports, because I know usually we get a written report from Brianna with the CES report, and so we post all of that onto the COG website under the Homeless Services Task Force page. And additionally, I do have some fact sheets, some information from Safe Huts. And so I'll also make sure that those documents get uploaded onto the website as well. But we're happy to make, Kathleen and I can get that sent out, the path report to you. I'm happy to get that sent out to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let me add it to my to-do list. Okay, so at this point, well, we still have 10 minutes before our next speaker. So perfect segue. Brianna, are you ready to give the report for the coordinated entry system?
Yes, I am. Yep. And Sherry Weaver will also be joining me to provide updates on some of our interim housing sites. So not a lot of updates since we last spoke, except for the fact that our fiscal year has ended as of June 30th. So for everybody else on the call, you know, it's a busy time of year as we wrap things up from the last fiscal year, but we continue to work diligently with our recovery rehousing program. And we've been able to continue to house, I believe last time we spoke, we have housed about 24 of our 30 slots through recovery rehousing. So we're really excited about that placement rate. And that is as part of the COVID-19 response with LASA is the recovery rehousing program. So we've been excited to utilize that. We have also been referring folks who we received calls from for eviction prevention services or funding for that. We know that the state of California has recently announced funding and has a website, Housing is Key. And so we've been able to share that with a lot of the callers that we receive. And they've been able to access that website and apply for funding if their situation has been caused and impacted by COVID-19. We are referring them for those financial resources. We've also been continuously working and partnering and doing our work in the city of Torrance. We've been very busy, and Valerie's had quite a few positive outcomes and recently some housing placements through some of the recovery rehousing slots and rapid rehousing slots throughout Spot 8. So that's been really exciting. And then in the beach cities, we've been really busy with, I think, community engagement efforts has been really huge. So in Hermosa Beach this Thursday, we are participating in a forum that's hosted by the city of Hermosa Beach for the community as it relates to homelessness. So that'll be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. this Thursday, the 8th. And then we'll also be conducting a second Beach Cities Homelessness 101 training on the 15th of July from 1 p.m. until 2 p.m. Just to create another option for folks who may not have had the opportunity to participate in our first round back in May. And then the outreach continues daily, in collaboration with the various police departments, Department of Mental Health, and the other outreach teams who service that area. So we've stayed very busy in the beach cities. And then as Courtney and Haley both mentioned, continue to use LA Hop. If there's one thing that I can tell you to kind of tell your constituents or your community members is to utilize that. Our outreach coordinator is on top of that daily. I'm a team lead in the system, and I'm constantly, giving tickets to the team. It works really well. It allows us to pull really great reports and track where we're seeing, various trends throughout the spa, depending upon the time of year. We know this is a very busy time of year for outreach requests as it's warmer outside, people are moving more, things are open now, so people are seeing more people versus last year this time. So we're seeing more requests, but it's not abnormal for a non-COVID impacted summer. Like prior to COVID, summers were always a really busy time as it relates to outreach. And so this is just much like summer of 2019. So I want to share that. And then in terms of just our CES program, so for CES adults, as I mentioned, the fiscal year did end on the 30th of June. And so our numbers are reflective of the entire fiscal year. We've assessed 422 individuals in Spot 8, and that is not just Harbor Interfaith, but inclusive of our subcontractors throughout the spa. And then we've been able to house 41 households through rapid rehousing. That doesn't include the other 50 or so households we've been able to house through housing navigation. And then our retention rate in rapid rehousing is around 90%. And with CES for TAY, for our transitional age youth, which are 18 to 24 years old, we've assessed 47 youth this fiscal year, and we've housed 28 of those that have been assessed with 100% retention rate in rapid rehousing. And we haven't had to do much prevention in any of our programs just because of the eviction moratoriums. There hasn't been that big of a request. More of the requests that we receive that way are in regards to information about eviction prevention, not necessarily asking for financial assistance. And then with our family system, they have conducted 243 assessments throughout Spot 8, and they've housed 186 families throughout Spot 8 with a 95% retention rate, and they've assisted 27 families. And so our family system remains incredibly busy, but doing some really incredible work as well. And now I'll turn it over to Sherry for updates on our interim housing sites here in Spot 8.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll go over our interim housing and shelter sites, and just to echo what Courtney said earlier, we've come a long way as actually having resources, in SPA 8, especially for our outreach teams. I know they're grateful to actually have somewhere to take folks that are experiencing homelessness. So just to kind of put this in perspective, we've gone from literally 40 shelter beds over in Wilmington to now 330 beds throughout the SPA. So we've got the new tiny homes village over there in Harbor City, or actually over by Harbor College. We've got the county shelter site here in San Pedro, which is 40 beds, 100 beds at Wilmington ABH, 100 beds at San Pedro ABH, and then the 15 beds over at Redondo Beach Pallet Shelter. So percentage of increase, that's about 725%. That's amazing. And then we're having Torrance that's coming online in the very near future. So we've come a long way. So Redondo Beach Pallet Shelter, our site remains full at 15 residents, pretty much been full since the day we opened in December. We've had a total of 34 residents that have come through that particular site. 19 of those are permanently housed right now. And we've got a lot of other of the residents right now that are connected to resources. So there's a lot of Section 8 vouchers that are rolling out, both from the city and the county. We've got 6 people that are matched to county vouchers, 2 more that are matched to DMH resources. And then we've got 1 transitional age youth that is in the process of moving into permanent supportive housing at that site. This site was initially a 6-month pilot program. And we've just been notified not too long ago that it will be extended through December of 2022. And the 15 units will probably be increased to 20 units. 8th Street Interim Housing, the county shelter over here by the San Pedro Post Office, currently have 31 residents with just 1 opening right now. We have a total of 67 residents that have come through since March of 2020, 14 that are permanently placed. Again, a whole bunch of them that are getting, county vouchers, DMH, housing resources, a couple that are going into permanent supportive housing projects. And then we have 1 veteran right now that's working on a HUD-VASH voucher. And then last but not least, a Bridge Home in San Pedro, currently have 52 residents. That's been open since, actually we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. It's been open since July of 2020. And we've had 16 permanent housing placements. And I think just to kind of illustrate the impact specifically here in San Pedro, a lot of the focus for the 2 sites here in San Pedro were focused on the San Pedro post office area. And literally we had hundreds of tents and encampments down there. Last count as of today is 12. So, we are definitely making progress. We are making an impact. We could balance it out with more permanent housing resources. That would be a blessing, but we do have some resources coming into the system, and mainly the emergency housing vouchers, which there's close to, in fact, greater than 6,000 vouchers that are coming into LA County as a whole. A bulk of those will be coming through the city and county of LA housing authorities, but we've also been working with some of our smaller city housing authorities, specifically Redondo Beach, Torrance, Inglewood, and Hawthorne. So our staff at our interim housing sites and some of our other population system programs have been very, very busy matching eligible households and individuals to this resource. So we're going to be very, very busy finding housing here. So I think that's really great news that this resource is coming in, and I think as a cliff note to closing out the pandemic season that we've had, this is really good news for all of us. That's my report.
Great, thank you, Sherry and Brianna. Does anyone have any questions of either of them? All right, I'm not seeing hands. Let me make sure that I'm not missing anybody. So I do have a question because I know, Brianna, you mentioned the numbers for fiscal year 20 to 21. How did the pandemic impact the numbers that you saw this year versus last year? And of course,
I think definitely the second half, like I think March until now, things have been a lot easier. I think prior to March, client transportation and landlords being willing to set up in-person viewings and, having clients see virtually versus in person, those were all real challenges, I think, for our population that we work with. It would be hard to ask anybody to move in on, photos and video and not really being able to see things in person. So I think we adapted really well as staff. I think for all of our agencies that do this work, we've adapted really well to really uncertain times. But I think the clients have also been really resilient and really patient throughout the process. So I think, in terms of timelines, things were extended a lot longer than they normally would be, whether it's, in order to apply, we need to get you your ID. And when the DMV was closed, that was a bit of a, getting it online is not always easy. And so when those things weren't available as they are now, timelines just looked a lot longer, but we've slowly but surely seen those timelines dwindle and dwindle and dwindle as things begin to open up because we have things that are more accessible. So, I can't say it didn't have an impact, but I will say that our teams all persevered through all of the challenges that were thrown our way this past year.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Brianna or Sherry? I see Councilmember Chen has his hand up.
Thank you. I've been attending a few of these homelessness task forces, and I may have asked this question before. We're focusing a lot about housing and temporary housing and treatment. Are there any studies or effort that focuses on reducing the inflow into homelessness situation? Because otherwise, it seems like this is unless we take care of the back end, and I'm talking about the front end of entering into homeless.
Sherry, do you want me to take that one or would you like to take that question? Oh, you're muted, Sherry, sorry.
Yeah, so George, I think there's, even our funders are looking at, how do we stem the flow at the front door right now? And I think, I've been working in homeless services for a number of years, and it's not just how do we stem the flow, but how do we, really address some of the larger social problems that we have. Lack of affordable housing probably being at the top. Income inequality, how do we get people to have a household income that will allow them to afford housing? And then, I think there's a lot of other factors too. I mean, poverty obviously plays a part in this. Looking at our seniors, which is going to be our next increasingly growing population that are living on fixed incomes. I mean, heck, I just looked at my Social Security income, and there's no way that I could live in LA County if I was a renter. So it's, it's kind of frightening. And then I think, there's other factors that play into it too, everything from health conditions. Great, talk today with DMH, how do we really address mental health in a way that, people are able to stabilize? I mean, there's so many factors. And I think when we think about homelessness, I always, use the reference of like peeling away the layers of an onion, because there are so many contributing factors that we can't take a cookie cutter approach to really stem that flow. But I think, looking at what are some of the trends, and I think that's really where we need to focus. And as those trends come up, really targeting resources and programs that focus on that particular trend is where we really need to focus right now.
Thank you, Sherry. And I don't know, Ashley, did you have anything that you wanted to add coming from the CEO's office?
No, none at this time. Thank you, Grace.
Okay. Are there any other questions of Sherry or Brianna? All right, I don't see any hands raised, so I think we will go ahead and move on. Oh, excuse me, Nancy, sorry.
No, oops, no worries. And I was just going to follow up with what Sherry was saying. And there's always ongoing meetings kind of usually at the county level, very strategic planning meetings. And right now I know that there's some looking at various groups and there's a lot of members, some who are on this call, that are involved with an organization called Shelter Partnership and Corporation for Supportive Housing those two TA providers are having a series of meetings looking at seniors that are experiencing homelessness. So I just wanted to just kind of let George know that these are kind of ongoing for different cohorts. And that just happens to be one that's going on now. And I think what Ashley was saying too, just the fact that the Board of Supervisors has recognized that now that we're 4 or 5 years into the Measure H, they do want to kind of step back and say, hey, are those 47 strategies, they're the right ones? How are things changed? Maybe we need to revisit things. Maybe we need to do more in prevention. It just as an example. So I just think that's a great example also of policy meetings that are taking place throughout the county. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And Kathleen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a comment as well, outside of, our homeless initiative, we have our housing departments and LACDA, and, rent relief is one of the things that they've been doing in COVID to try to prevent people from becoming homeless. And we are a little worried once, the rent relief programs are over. They're, trying to figure out ways how to keep people from becoming homeless, because of the COVID, as well as the seniors that were already mentioned. But there's lots of people thinking about this, and they have been, they have initiatives, to work on, working with renters, or people that own homes and also sharing homes and before they get there. So they're trying to stem that flow, but it's a pretty big flow.
Well,
That's it for me.
Thank you, Kathleen. And, just to remind everybody too, the COG does have our Home Share South Bay program where we are trying to look at preventing homelessness, and especially focused on the older adult population. And I know later on when the COG does their updates, Lori's going to give us an update on what's going on with Home Share South Bay. So one last time, are there any other questions? Because I know our next speaker is here. And I think with that, we will go ahead and move on to Richard Corral, who is the CEO and principal consultant with Corral Consulting, and he's going to be talking about the Back Home Initiative. So Richard, I will let you take it away. Thank you for being here. Oh, and I see Christian's back. And you're muted.
Oh, I'm here. Hi, everybody. Richard Corral here, and yes, I am CEO and principal consultant of Corral Consulting, and I'm excited to share with you today a little bit about the Back Home Initiative. And actually, Grace, since I last spoke to you, I have a pretty exciting update to share. We had some tremendous success last week at LA City Council. So I will get to that. I'll keep you all in suspense for a little bit. I'll do my presentation. Grace, how much time do I have? I think you're on mute, Grace.
About 25 minutes.
Okay, great. Well, 25 minutes, that's generous. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to share the deck. And Grace, I have a, well, that's not it. I have a deck as well as a one-page overview. I assume I'll just share with you the PDF copies and then you can share with the group as a follow-up? Okay. All right, that sounds great. So the Back Home Initiative is a, believe it or not, the councilman who just asked the question about how do we stem the tide of homelessness? How do we stop the influx of individuals entering homelessness? Well, here is a solution. And getting back to the exciting update, this solution actually was passed by LA City Council. It was a motion that was passed last Tuesday, I believe. It was authored by Council Member Bob Blumenfeld from the Valley. And our team that you see here, US Home Pros, Jacob Lipa, who's the former president of Somas Engineering and Corral Consulting. My background and experience has been about 10 years of working to address homelessness in various regions throughout the county. We all partnered with Councilmember Blumenfield to help author this motion. Specifically, the motion it requests various city departments for the city of Los Angeles to explore specifically how to fund this model that I'm about to show you and what the total cost would be and any sort of policy changes that would need to occur in order to scale a pilot of the Back Home Initiative throughout all of the city of Los Angeles. As a side note, there's also a complementary similar motion that was authored by Supervisor Solis and Supervisor Barger. And they submitted it on May 18th. And we're also working with those council offices to ensure that motion's passage and success. So we're working both, our team that you see here is working both with the city and the county. We had a lot of success last week passing this motion to explore the financing, and we're doing the same thing on the county side as well. So we've been making really tremendous progress, and let me share a little bit more about what it is. So just like the councilman, just like the question that the councilman offered, how do we stop the growing demand for, how do we address the growing demand for affordable housing? In other words, how do we stop the influx of new individuals and families from entering homelessness? And we know that this is a challenge because for all the reasons that were shared in response to the councilman just now, but also most importantly, it has a lot to do with time and money. Permanent supportive housing, primarily because of entitlements and because of the cost of livable wage jobs, is expensive. It takes a long time. There was a report that was put out last year about the relative cost per unit. And though these time and money really are the greatest impetus for addressing our housing needs, as well as doing it quickly. Because as we know, more people are entering homelessness every day. And so I offer the Back Home Initiative, which is an innovative, efficient, and cost-effective solution to curtail the unmitigated rise in homelessness throughout the city and the county. And it addresses multiple needs simultaneously. And this is kind of the unique value proposition of BHI, the Back Home Initiative. It develops new supportive housing units. It frees up temporary and rapid rehousing units. It constructs accessory dwelling units free of charge. It finances them. And it also builds intergenerational wealth in low-income communities. And it does all of these things at the same time. And what's really important, particularly around stemming the tide, is that you do have to have some sort of a supply side solution, right? So you do have to build some new housing, and also you need to free up, where the system is clogged, particularly in either rapid rehousing or temporary housing, because some people are ready to, be housed in more permanent circumstances, right? And in places that they can live in a long-term setting. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the Back Home Initiative, it finances and fast tracks the construction of new accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. It's a scattered site supportive housing unit model. It again creates a system, an ecosystem of homeowner incentivized affordable housing. And it also increases passive income and property values, particularly in low-income communities, which, no coincidence, are also disproportionately impacted by homelessness, right? So you're sort of two birds with one stone right there. So why ADUs? Why not traditional permanent supportive housing or any other type of housing as a solution? Well, the city of Los Angeles, it really has done a lot of legwork when it comes to policies around the construction of ADUs, which I provided you with some statistics there. Also, there's some efficiencies when it comes to ADUs, which oftentimes, one of the greatest hurdles is time, right? So we need efficiencies. We need cost-effective efficiencies. So that things like no entitlements are required, unlike permanent supportive housing. We also get to leverage these new laws that come down from the state, as well as the city, as well as the county. The county is also doing it. So many different actors are involved in making the construction of ADUs much more simple and streamlined. Also, there's the whole ownership factor that BHI, we do transfer the ownership of the ADU 100% and free of charge back to the homeowner after the program period is completed. And they can then do whatever they want with that ADU after the program period has completed. And we'll get more into that in a second. Also, many of you are aware that ADUs have been pre-approved as City of Los Angeles standards. So our designs have been submitted to the City of Los Angeles for pre-approval, which also helps to expedite the construction. This slide I'm not really going to get into. Most folks, I think, on this call, on this meeting, they know what an ADU is. So, but I just want to be clear that the ADUs that we, the Back Home Initiative, are proposing to provide are 100% move-in ready. And what we mean by that is that includes, I mean, everything from washer and dryer and refrigerator to utensils in the cupboard, as well as glasses and plates. I mean, move-in ready, turnkey, ready to go. So just a quick overview of some of the designs. Again, these are pre-approved designs that are currently being, pre-approved by the City of Los Angeles and have been submitted. Our first model is a 240 square foot ADU. And in fact, I did want to provide an update that we needed to, or we wanted to offer tours to anybody who's interested on this meeting, who would like to tour one of these ADUs. I did tell Grace that we were working to set up a time, and we can now reconnect with Grace and set up a time for you all to come down to Downey, California, where the factory that creates these ADUs using light gauge steel. These are not made out of wood. And you can tour the demo site, the demo ADU, as well as you can get an insider perspective on the construction process using light gauge steel, which is very innovative, cost efficient, as well as durable. So here's the design. Here's the floor plan. You can see that the light gauge steel, obviously it's durable, it's offers consistent performance, is very resilient, particularly to the elements here in Southern California. And as I had mentioned earlier, it includes all appliances, it includes, it's fully furnished, it is move-in ready. We also have a 1-bedroom model here, again, same construction. And we also have a 2-story model, which I haven't added here. And the reason why we're doing all these different variations is because, of course, you know, people's backyards have different needs, requirements, layouts, sloping, all of that, grading. So we want to make sure that our designs are flexible to accommodate multiple different footprints. So what are the goals of BHI? Of course, first and foremost, we want to reduce homelessness. Secondly, we want to lower supportive housing costs and timeline, which I had mentioned earlier. This is a pilot, right? So we want to make sure that this is scalable. Our goal in doing this is basically to create a new market and a new template for many, many different producers of ADUs, of which there are many, to be able to partake in the learnings of the pilot, and hopefully it becomes a model that is funded, that can be accessed by numerous different developers. So our goal is to really create a new market to address the issue of homelessness that many actors can activate and can benefit from. We also want to establish a sustainable fund to fund this work above and beyond a pilot. We also, of course, want to improve the well-being of all participants, whether it's the tenant, the individual who is experiencing a homelessness, or someone who is the actual property owner, the landlord. And of course, we want people to be able to stay in their homes, right? So since the ADU generates passive income and the homeowners are compensated approximately $400 per month, that also is a revenue generating opportunity that can help people offset any potential revenue losses or income losses due to COVID or any other life emergency, health, loss of job, whatever the case may be. This will, particularly in low-income communities, we want people to be able to stay in their homes and have the income to be able to do that. For the pilot project specifically, we are wanting to build 150 ADUs. I have a feeling that thanks to Councilman Blumenfeld's motion and obviously Solis and Barger's motion, I have a feeling that they're going to want more than 150 ADUs. But our business model, our floor, so to speak, is a minimum of 150 ADUs. We're obviously more than capable and ready to build more than 150, but the minimum is 150 ADUs. Of course, we have to establish agreements for a minimum of approximately 10 years. Again, the city of Los Angeles is exploring whether 10 years, that's our recommendation. Let's see what the city comes back with. We think that 10 years is a reasonable amount of time, but not too much time to ask of property owners to participate in the program in exchange for a 100% free financed ADU, as well as supportive services for both the tenant and the landlord. We also feel that because this program is targeting low acuity individuals and families, so folks under, I would say, an acuity score of 7 or below, we were really trying to target individuals and families that are either at risk of homelessness, so meaning they are technically housed, but they're at risk, or those individuals who have relatively recently become homeless and may still have employment, or those folks who are in transitional housing and have met the necessary criteria in order to transition out and have reached a level of stability to live successfully in supportive housing. So we're not targeting the chronically homeless because we're asking people essentially to share space, right, with property owners. And so we want to make sure that those relationships are positive. We want to make sure that the landlord is happy. And because of that, we're providing case management actually before the construction. It's technically construction. It's more like we actually bring in the prefabricated walls on site. So there's really more of like, it's more of like assembly rather than construction on the site, but more of a technicality since it's prefabricated. But we want to make sure that the homeowner, even before the assembly of the ADU occurs, we want to make sure that they are engaged. We want to make sure that they are clear about the types of individuals or families that they would like to house. And we also want to make sure that they always feel like they have an ability to, that they're not alone, right? That they have a case manager that they can call. God forbid, we don't want them calling the police. We want them calling, their coordinated entry system case manager so that they can talk it out, express any concerns that they may have, and quite possibly, if need be able to find another tenant in partnership with the case manager that more fits their needs. So establishing that relationship up front is very important. And of course, the case manager is also extremely important for reasons that obviously most people on this call are well familiar with. So I just wanted to provide you a quick little snapshot of the cost per unit and what that actually provides, what that actually pays for. Again, we're looking at LA County and the city. We're looking at 150 units minimum. We're looking at 10 years, a commitment, the construction timeline, because it's prefabricated and also because in the city of Los Angeles, our designs are pre-approved. We're looking at 60 to 90 days per unit. And what does that cost include? It includes engineering designs, construction, permitting, utility hookups, again, as I mentioned, all the appliances, and of course, the support services, case management that I had mentioned. Our calculations come in at 13 million. That's a one-time investment that we're working with the city and the county and other entities to secure. Why is it a one-time investment? Because we are also utilizing some of the revenues to create a revolving fund, which can then stand alone, in our absence into the future, in perpetuity, to keep this program alive and sustainable. Where are we getting our funding from? We're asking the construction from the city, the county, and the state, primarily from the recently approved Federal American Rescue Plan Act. Also, the support services at 4.8 million, we're asking from LASA, and then a rental subsidy of 22.9 million will be funded by Section 8. And timeline, here's just a brief timeline in terms of the branding, the community outreach, the identification of the property owners, the manufacturing, the leasing, and of course, the maintenance. And it just briefly kind of gives you an overview of the timing of those various elements of the program. And then just a brief organizational chart to explain to you kind of how all of these actors sort of come together and become BHI. So that is my presentation. I also have for you all a one-page overview that kind of provides a brief little summary of this, and it's right here. It just kind of it's a one-pager, but it's both sides because I couldn't get it all on technically one side of the page. So it's why, and this is really for folks who, I would say more community members, for folks who maybe are not as familiar with maybe some of the terminology and the lingo that we use. So I really tried to create kind of an ADU BHI 101 one-pager, and answering very simple questions like, what's an ADU? What is this back home initiative? Who are we? And then what are our next steps? So anyways, I can also share that as well. And I'm sure you all have some significant questions, so I'm here to answer.
Great. Well, thanks, Richard. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So the owner, if an owner was to put an ADU unit in, they get like a $350 stipend. Is there any actual rent that's paid by the tenant then that lives there?
Yes. So I guess the answer is yes and yes. It's around $400 monthly, regardless of whether or not there's a tenant. So it's a monthly stipend because the land is being used, right? So obviously we want a tenant in there, but there are cases where there's some lapses or whatever. So we want to make sure that the property owner knows they will get that check consistently and reliably every month. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it's part of your question, is because again, these are low acuity individuals and families, right? So we are trying to target folks who are at risk, are ready to transition, recently homeless, so have a high probability of contributing towards their Section 8 voucher, which is part of the program. I mean, it's always been part of the program to, at least depending upon your income, that there is an expectation of contribution. Yes, and I can't tell you what it will be because it varies, obviously, depending upon the individual.
Okay. Kind of a weird question, but I'm going to ask it nonetheless. Who pays the utilities? Is that tied to the homeowner, or is the utilities for that ADU unit separate? It's
good question, Sherry. So they are the way that the utilities work is that they are compensated. They are part of the business model, right? But what's interesting is that we actually have a partnership with a solar panel provider manufacturer who was offering to put solar panels free of charge on the ADUs and provide that energy to the main house. So what it could be a scenario in which the utilities the money that we allocate for the utilities in the budget may be offset by the energy that is being produced by the solar cells that were going to be installed free of charge. But to answer your question, it's built into the business model. We expect to pay for that.
And then just one last question too, as far as the staff that'll be working with either that family or individual, is that through existing homeless provider organizations, or you talked about the funding through LAHSA?
So because we want to ensure that the case management is connected to the coordinated entry system, we're asking LAHSA for the money, but what we want is for the coordinated entry system itself to determine how and who should provide the case management service. We actually created a budget. I can actually share that with you in terms of the number. It comes out to be about 6 to 7 case managers for 150 units. And also we need, of course, a supervisor for that. So we did a whole budget that we actually created with HOPIX and Union Station Homeless Services. They're both, as you know, the coordinated entry system leads for their respective spas, right? So they actually created the case management budget for us. So our recommendation is, LAHSA has the money and they're going to be getting more money, and everyone's clearly, as you all know, much of these monies, the service monies, are tied to housing, meaning you can activate the funds if there's a place to stay, to live. And we're trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? And we're trying to, yes, there's a place to live, and yes, we need services, but frankly, we're going to turn it over to the coordinated entry system leads and the respective agencies to determine. Well, we're going to get you the money, but it's up to the CES itself to determine who's in the best position to provide this very specific service. Because it's what's interesting, it's low acuity case management, right? We're all very familiar with the other type of case management, obviously, but this is different. So that's why we're instead of us saying, oh, we think this person should do it or this agent, we're not going to do that because we feel that that's not our place.
Great. Lori, go ahead. Unless Sherry, are you done? Okay, go ahead, Lori.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the presentation and concept. I think this is marvelous. I can't wait to get my hands on this. But I do have some questions on logistics.
Yes.
So I'll just throw a few at, because I could give you about 12 questions. We don't have time for that.
Okay. All right.
So I'm curious how you find the homeowners. I'm curious if you put this ADU on somebody's property, is their home going to be reassessed? Is their property value going to go up? Because that would be scary.
Right.
And once this is built there's that 10-year plan, whatever, what if the homeowner sells the home? And then you might not know this, but I don't know if the RENA requirements for the cities, if this ADU would fill that. So I'm just in my mind trying to think, what are the incentives to find those homeowners? And of course, what Sherry was talking about, I have concerns with case management because we already heard earlier that they're struggling to find enough outreach workers. So that's my first batch of questions.
Yes. All right. Well, Lori, I love logistics, and I can also tell you're a policy person as well. So I always get along with policy folks. So I'm going to talk about the policy stuff first because I like policy. Assessor's office, property assessing. I already talked to Assessor Prang and Hilda Solis, and I have a call later this month with Supervisor Solis's team, because as it turns out, it's going to require state action in terms of what we all want, which is this, for the 10 years, this does not get assessed. It should not be, this is a public benefit. That's ridiculous. Besides, all the benefit would be lost because you'd be paying the stipend to the taxes. So that makes no sense, right? Why would you want to do that? So I'm teaming, and actually the call literally at the end, later the 2 weeks, I think it's 2 weeks, is we're gonna identify the legislators at the state level to make that change. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you asked, there was another policy question that you asked. It was about.
I asked about the RENA.
RENA,
Yeah.
RENA. Another state fix, basically, that would occur. The good news is the state, more so than local, are very, how do I say this? They like ADUs. The state, I mean, they're the ones who advanced several important pieces of ADU legislation within the past 2 years, basically. So the state, and I would love for these ADUs to count towards RENA numbers, right? Why not? So the only little hiccup is it's for 10 years. So anyways, we'll have to discuss that at the state level, right? And then you asked more of a logistic question around the identification. The identification is going to occur in a couple different ways. Number one, Somas Engineering actually has an application where they're able to identify eligible properties using GIS technology. That's the first thing. The second thing is many of the, for example, like the SBCCOG Coalition or the San Gabriel Valley COG, the San Gabriel Valley Consortium on Homelessness, I'm sure you all, many of them have existing property owner roundtables. Actually, the SBCCOG Coalition has like a breakfast of property owners and landlords. And so we're also going to present to them this idea. And then, of course, you know, the word will get out and they'll share it with others. Obviously, I think property owners will be very excited about this for obvious reasons. But we also really want to make sure, and I'm sure the city of LA is going to kind of build this into their research that they're doing, is that they're going to want it to be focused in communities that really stand to benefit from the investment, and meaning that they stand to be able to pay their mortgage, they stand to be able to remain in their home. Maybe they've been disproportionately impacted by homelessness or COVID or any other kind of, you know, variables that qualify communities as being at risk, that really stand to benefit from this public investment. Not to say that communities that are not low income cannot benefit from this. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, many folks who have hit me up when I've done these presentations, they're very honest. They're not from, you know, traditionally low income communities, but they want to participate and they want to help and they want to be part of the solution, you know? And so I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Did I answer your question? I think I did. Okay, good. All right.
Any other questions for Richard? All right, Richard, I'll just say, you know, so this is going to happen in partnership with the city of LA. Are you going to be focusing on any particular spa, or is it really anywhere within the borders of the city of LA?
Councilman Blumenfeld, his motion, and actually here, I just put a link in the chat box. It's a petition to support BHI and the councilman's motion, as well as it provides links to the motion. And I think it might even provide links to some BHI overview documents as well. But the councilman said he wanted the city departments to explore applying the BHI model citywide. What the city comes back with, I have a feeling that they're going to want to focus on certain areas that really need the investment and really stand to benefit from this type of an investment in all the multiple ways that this initiative can do. That's my prediction, but I don't know what the city's going to come back and say.
Got it. Okay, well, I think, it'd be great to get a follow-up, at some point from you guys in the future, how it's going, see it as a case study, and, also hear if it is a case study that is bearing out, how it could potentially be something that could be brought to Spot 8 in the South Bay, as an option down the line.
Well, just as an aside, because sort of my work and experience has really been with smaller cities, not the city of Los Angeles, to be honest with you. And specifically kind of, your counterparts in the San Gabriel Valley. And more specifically, they actually approved and secured funding from Senator Rubio through the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust. And the BHI is one of their it was approved in the portfolio of projects to be funded in this upcoming fiscal year. So the cities in the SGV are definitely positioning themselves to be able to fund some of the BHI ADUs. So there is a sort of analogous story going on over in the San Gabriel Valley.
Good to know. All right, I'll ask one more time. Any other questions for Richard? All right,
Hey, Richard, this is Roberto.
Go ahead, Roberto.
I got a quick question. Great presentation, Richard. Just a quick question on if you've decided what income limits would be housed in those ADUs. And you also mentioned as part of your financing structure that you'd be able to put Section 8 vouchers in those units. And how would that financing structure look like? Typically, with a Section 8 voucher, the tenant is allowed to pay market rent. So will those landlords be allowed to charge market rent?
No, it's going to be the formula, Alberto, will be a function of the tenant's ability to pay. And in other words of saying, are they working? Are they not working? They won't have to pay for utilities. And of course, the rent will be subsidized. And of course, it's move-in ready, so they don't have to worry about those expenses. So it really needs to be based and driven by ability to pay. And maybe sometimes there isn't an ability to pay depending upon changing circumstances, right? And we've actually built a contingency into our model that allows for a certain amount of time where the person can't pay. We're assuming that will happen. And we're planning for it. But we also are planning, because it is 10 years, for that person also to have employment from time to time and be able to pay something towards the rent. So again, we're working with our partners in the city across the departments who are now, doing a deep dive into this. And they'll definitely be determining what that criteria and what those parameters are around payment and ability to pay.
Thank you. And just lastly, can you stack that thing on top of a garage?
It's interesting that you say it. So the answer is yes.
Oh, cool.
The carport. We have a carport version.
Wow.
I don't know if we have an above garage version, but I can ask my team. I know we have a carport version. So you have the carport and then it's above it.
Sure.
And I know we have a 2-story for those people who don't have a large footprint.
Sure.
But that want a 1-bedroom, right? And of course, we have the studio, but I can inquire.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, well, thanks, Richard. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us.
Yeah, I'm glad I made it.
Fantastic. All right, we are gonna, I think while I was off call, I think we did the CES update as well, correct? Okay, so let's go to the legislative updates. We have Cody from Assembly Member Marasucci's office. Cody, you wanna go first if you got any news updates?
Sure, thanks, Christian. I don't really have much of a legislative update for you all. The Assembly member doesn't have any active bills right now that would impact homeless policy. But with the summer recess coming up, we are starting to take in a lot of new bill ideas. So if there are state fixes that you all would like to see, including the proposed ADU policy, please feel free to email me, call me. I'll put in my contact info in the chat box. But yeah, sorry, I don't have any new legislative update for you all, and I'm sure you all are aware of the $12 billion in funding in the state budget. So I don't think I need to expand any more on that as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cody. Any questions for Cody? All right, then why don't we go to Kathleen from Supervisor Mitchell's office?
Slow to unmute. So the supervisor, is still getting into the weeds on the county services, but she has created a homeless team, which I'm part of. Isla Graciana is our head of it, and we're combining housing and homelessness and health together, along with public safety, and trying to create a plan. So we're in the process of making those plans. We do have a motion coming up, I believe, next week regarding LASA. And I can't really give you much information on that because I'm still writing it. But we will be participating. I'm glad I got the invitation, and then I'll be prepared to make a presentation in the future.
Fantastic. Any questions for Kathleen? All right, thanks, Kathleen. Jennifer?
Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Christian. One thing I just wanted to add is that the board will be looking at how to allocate the American Rescue Funds relative to homelessness to figure out how they'll have the most impact. And obviously prevention is going to be part of that. We don't have the details just yet, even on really the time frame. I'm trying to get a handle on that. Kathleen might know more on the time frame, but I think that's an important part of the discussion that we were having earlier, because this will really bring a lot of new opportunities with this funding. I know that phase one is 974 million. I don't know exactly how much of that will be going towards homelessness, but I would imagine a lot. Beyond that, oh, go ahead, Kathleen.
There's a really good chunk. We're kind of questioning how it's divided up. And so we may need to have a discussion about that internally. But and I know there's a homeless meeting tomorrow among all the homeless deputies for all 5 districts. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, that's very helpful. And Kathleen and I will keep this group updated about that as it moves forward. Beyond that, we're in active discussions with the city of Torrance to help fund the operational and capital costs for the temporary shelter that was passed as part of their homeless plan that was mentioned earlier. Also continuing to work with Redondo on their pallet shelter. Talking to Hermosa about some of the alternative crisis response opportunities. And also our homeless and housing deputy, Ivan Sulik, will be part of Hermosa's homelessness forum that's taking place online on Zoom tomorrow from 6 to 8. So that might be something that you all might want to listen in to as well. But that's pretty much it for now. We're looking forward to the 15 million for the COG innovation funding, and really looking to all our cities to see what you can all do. And as we always say, we're here to help support however we can. If the city's willing to do something, we'll partner with you. So
great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions for Jennifer? All right, then let's move on to COG updates. Grace, Jackie, Lori.
Okay, I guess I can start. There's no more devastating news that we could give you than Grace is leaving. So I'll start with the bad news first. And what I'd really like you to do, I had asked Grace, I don't know if you did this, and I think it's up on our website if it's not in the chat. We do have a job description. We want it heavily and widely circulated. And so if you could please, if you know of anybody that might be, and nobody can fill Grace's shoes, so let's forget about that. But if we can find somebody that can help us with this position, would you please present them with the job description, because I want to fill this as soon as possible. I also wanted to say for all of you that are our member cities, the COG is now offering GIS services to cities. So if there's some reason that you might want to map the homeless or do something that would involve GIS and you don't have the capacity in your city, or your capacity is being used up, please remember us as a resource, and we'll be sending out something to the city managers about that probably, but before the end of this week. I also want to, I guess I'll steal Grace's thunder. Grace is talking to you today from the office of the COG, connected to the South Bay Fiber Network, which I guess was connected like a couple of hours ago. So we're very excited. We are part of the South Bay Fiber Network now, and we're looking at adding more buildings, and it's really a reality, and we want to be able to do a lot of services on that. And then I don't know if Grace or Lori's going to talk about this, but the next meeting is September 1st. And I guess I wanted to get an idea of whether you wanted that meeting virtual or a Zoom meeting. So Christian, if you could make sure we discuss that at the end of the meeting, I think that would be helpful. So that's all I had. Grace, Lori?
Okay, well, I'll jump right in. And yeah, it was very exciting to be able to connect to the South Bay Fiber Network, because the gentleman was here connecting us. And I think we went online, we went live at 2:30, because I'm like, okay, I have to be connected by 3, because otherwise I'm in big trouble. So it's fun because our output is very quick, and it's much nicer than me working at home where I keep getting your internet is unstable message. So I'm very happy to be here at the office. So just a couple of things that I wanted to mention is still, I want to remind our cities that we have the client aid funds that are available through the current innovation funds. We've had great response from Torrance, and I know just today I got a response from Jackie Arcos in Gardena, so I'm going to be looking at that email a little bit more closely. So I just want to remind our cities that we do have those funds that are available. And then I want to turn it over to Lori to give an update on HomeShare South Bay.
Thank you, Grace. And nobody's more sad than me. I feel like I'm losing a limb here. So Grace, just can't even fathom it. But anyway, I'm pretty excited. I am this close to having a HomeShare South Bay match. And I'm very excited. It's somebody from Palos Verdes. It's somebody that the Palos Verdes Peninsula Senior Village helped because the person did not know how to use the computer. It's a much older woman. She's being very altruistic and offering lower rent, as we had hoped this program would work. Just for a little bit of help around the house and some computer assistance. So hopefully we'll have an official announcement soon. It was a lot of hand-holding and a lot of phone calls to do this. But mainly I want to tell you, as we're getting to post-COVID and we can meet in person, I really would love to do some presentations in person. These online presentations feel like I'm just talking to myself, okay? And I think that we're going to have better results when I can have a connection and eye contact with people. So if you know of any opportunities, whether at any type of meeting, church events, senior events, we're really trying to focus on seniors. I really believe in this program, and it is a prevention program. So reach out to me, Grace. We're still hurting on homeowners. So we're getting renters, but we've had a real slowdown in the last few weeks. So we need your help in finding those, even when he was talking about the ADUs, looking for altruistic people that are doing these things for the right reason to help others. I know there's people out there, so help me find a way to tap into them, and I will follow up like crazy. What else did you want me to update on, Grace?
I think that was it. Those are our two
Okay.
big pieces.
Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you guys. Are there any announcements from anybody in the group that you'd like to share? All right. Well, seeing none, then one thing Jackie mentioned was our next meeting will be September 1st. And it would be good to get an idea of whether people would like to do that meeting virtually or in person. Clearly LA County right now is sending out warnings related to the Delta variant. And so, I think we would want to all observe how that goes over the next couple months here. But if you have strong feelings one way or the other, please feel free to just email Jackie, and then we will clearly update you as we get closer to the meeting, and then we'll stipulate whether it is a virtual meeting or in person at that sometime in August, I would say. All right, if there is nothing else, then I will adjourn the meeting and wish you all have a really safe and healthy summer. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, Jennifer had her hand up.
Oh, Jennifer, go. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thanks, Grace. I actually just wanted to say quickly, I wanted to thank Grace for all her work. As we know, the COGs are a newer entity in the homelessness arena, and she has just done an amazing job, bootstrapping up so many programs and making so many connections. And she did it all with a lot of heart, a lot of humor. And we're going to miss you so much, but please keep in touch. I know we'll keep in touch because you can't get rid of me that quickly.
Yeah.
But please keep in touch with our office and the COG. And I know I speak for all of us when we say we wish you very well. You're a wonderful person, and you will be an amazing addition to your new organization.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so I guess my last act, and it's not of defiance, but my last act. So I'm going to be sending out the revised call for projects with David Leisure's information on there, and that's where you send your application. I will be sending out the rubric of how we're going to be scoring the projects, and I will be sending out the job announcement for my position. And was there anything else? Because I know, and Kathleen, I'm sending you the PowerPoint, and we're going to be posting the Safe Huts information. And then I know Richard's going to be sending me the slide deck from the BHI program. And so we'll make sure that we get those uploaded onto our webpage, our meeting webpage. So did I miss anything that I'm sending out?
I think you're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Grace. All right, everyone. Be well. See you soon.
Bye, Grace. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, buddy.
That's right. I forgot I have the control over the meeting.
Yes, you do.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and end it.
Okay. Good night, Grace.
Good night. Yeah. Good night, Gracie.